This is the story of a boy who never gave up. He faced so much obstacles that we would never imagine, but he never stopped fighting. His journey is an inspiration to us all, and you will find his story motivating and uplifting. My name is Adelaide, and I'm here to tell you about one of my upshelvers. This book. It's called The Boy Who Never Gave Up, a Refugee's Epic Journey to Triumph. And it's a book that tells the true life story of a boy who faced so much adversity while trying to fight for a better life for himself. If you're looking for a book that will ignite some hope and inspiration in your life, then this is the book for you. The boy in question is Dr. Emmanuel Taban. He is the author of this book. He is a highly acclaimed and well-known pulmonologist, that is a medical doctor who looks after our respiratory systems and our lungs, and he practices in South Africa. So his country of origin is in South Sudan, where he fled the war and made his way down to South Africa in a very epic story in terms of how he did that. But he is resident in South Africa, well-known and highly acclaimed. He is award-winning, and he has been nominated as one of the top 100 most influential people in Africa. So Dr. Emmanuel Taban was born in the southern part of South Sudan, close to Juba, and Juba is currently the capital city of the newly independent South Sudan. That's where he was born, in a war-torn country where he faced so much adversity, so much disruption to life in general, fleeing village attacks every now and then with his family. And he was also born to a single mother, and he did not live with his father. And so that's why I encourage you to read this book. It's an epic story of finally achieving success after so much adversity. But what is actually epic about his story is that at the age of 16 in this war-torn country, he was abducted and tortured by Sudanese troops because they believed that, and they suspected and accused him rather of spying for the rebels. And so when they took him, he was with them and they tortured him, and he had no choice but to flee. And when he fled from them, he ran away on foot, thinking that he was going to go back home, and he got lost. So he found himself in Eritrea, and then because he was lost, he decided that he should probably just find somewhere to go, and his decision was to go down south and find somewhere where he can pursue his education through the help of strangers, through the help of churches, like he had known the Catholic Church to be helping people in South Sudan. So he started trekking down on foot from Eritrea, and there are so many countries that he would have passed. So he would come from Eritrea to Ethiopia, to Kenya, to Tanzania, to northern Mozambique, I believe, to Zimbabwe, and then finally to South Africa. This is the journey that he traveled on foot, that he wanted to get educated so that he can actually go back home and show his mother that he had achieved something for the entire time that they had no idea where he was. So his hope, his relentless hope, the theme of this book, which is passion, determination, and resilience, is very evident as you read the book. You will feel inspired. You will definitely compare back to any of the experiences you have in your life that you define as adversity or difficulties, and realize that there's so much more to fight for in this life. So this is the book that I think everyone that is facing some difficulty, who needs some inspiration, some encouragement to keep going, should definitely read. And I have 10 lessons that I have learned and took as takeaways from this book. And I would like to share with you today as well the lessons that I've learned from this remarkable man's journey. And the first lesson that I've learned is that sometimes adversity is your only ally. You really sometimes get drive from the fact that you're facing difficulties. And this is what Dr. Emmanuel Taban leaned on. He was leaning on the fact that there was only adversity in his upbringing and he knew nothing else. And that's what was going to drive him. And so he was driven by that through his hope, through this difficult journey that he traveled. All he ever thought of was, if I go back home, there's so much difficulty. My family, my community are not living a better life. Not now and not in many years to come, because the war is ongoing and no one knows when it's going to end. And so at that time, all he could see was that adversity is his only friend. And throughout his journey, you can see it when you read the book that this is really what pushed him and nothing else. So it gets me to the third point, the third lesson that I get out of this book, definitely, which is that we should not stay victims of our poverty, our lack in our lives. We should not stay in the victim mentality, but rather try to come out of the poverty cycle. And sometimes it really is up to you. You have to find it, go out there and find it for yourself. So this is the third lesson that we learn from this book, that we should not ever stay in a victim mentality because it does not help us at all. The fourth lesson that I learned from this book is that prayers, miracles, and hoping for divine intervention have their place, but they cannot replace decision making on our part. If we have to get down to do some work, then we must do so, instead of waiting that something is going to happen that comes from God, or that even when bad things happen to us because of our inaction, then we say that it is God's will. So I think that is got a valuable lesson that it keeps on mentioning in this book every time, that it comes across situations where people are helpless and they seem to be waiting for someone else to assist them. And he just says he wishes that people would see things differently. So that's the fourth lesson that comes from this book. The fifth lesson, which is very relevant, is that bad leadership in Africa has actually ruined countries that would otherwise be wealthy. But instead, the politicians who should be doing that for a lot of the countries, and mainly Africa in this context, are absorbed in trying to enrich themselves and not really worried about even solving the most basic and mundane needs that people have in their daily lives. And so people are left to their devices, their limited devices that really do not help them much. And the next lesson that comes from this book is definitely that education can help emancipate people and a whole generation and uplift you. When you read this book, you will find that Dr. Emmanuel Taban later on goes back home, like I said, and he tries to uplift his family and his community. And he tries to contribute to education of some of them. He even tries to bring some infrastructure. He tries to build a bottling company for better water. So because he got that education, he managed to get to that position. The next one that we learned from him is that even though he then achieved so much after attaining his education and then getting his medical degree, he was never satisfied to stay at the same level. Even though he fought so much while he was young and got to achieve something that people could look at and say, you have done well. He never really sat on his laurels and said, oh yeah, now I can rest after fighting so much. Life has been so hard for me. Why don't I just relax? He did not do that. What he did instead was to keep on fighting, keep on going and upgrading himself, so that whatever happens, he can still at least practice and be recognized as one of the most educated medical doctors. So we should never, ever just relax because we've achieved that objective which we wanted at level 1. And the next lesson, which I think is the second from the last one, is that which we have inside us is the only thing. So advocating for yourself and just pushing yourself and encouraging yourself from inside is definitely sometimes the only way out. And that lonesome journey is the only way sometimes to then achieve what you want. Because a lot of the times the vision you have is not shared with others. And the last lesson from this book is definitely, as the title says, never give up. So no matter what it is that you face, you should never ever give up. Keep on trying. Rather look back when you're older and say, I tried. So whether you're struggling with adversity or yourself, or you've got obstacles on your path, or you know someone who is almost on the verge of giving up because of what they're facing, then I encourage you to have a look at this book. It will truly, truly inspire you. If you're at a point where you feel that you need someone to tell you a story that will encourage you, then I encourage you myself that you read this book, The Boy Who Never Gave Up, so that you too do not ever give up, but are inspired, motivated, and you have in yourself a new hope that's ignited by this epic book. So thank you so much for joining me in my review this week. I thoroughly enjoyed sharing about this epic book with you, and I hope that you can join me in the next few weeks. If you want to see more book reviews like this from me, as I read each and every book that I've got planned for myself this year, then subscribe to my channel and post your comments about what you think about this book if you've read it, and what you think about my review as well. You are free as well to add any of the book titles that you wish that I would look at and review as well. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next video next week when I review the next book, which I keep to myself right now as a surprise. Cheers there.